On a cold morning in the heart of the city, the streets were alive with the sounds of vendors calling out, cars honking, and people rushing to their destinations. Among the crowd, a young girl moved quietly, carrying a small basket filled with handmade items she had worked on through the night. Her clothes were simple and worn, but she held herself with a quiet dignity. Every step she took was careful, as if she was trying not to disturb the busy world around her. She had been coming to this market for months now. It was a place where she could sell her work and earn enough to pay for a small room she rented. Life had not been easy, but she had learned to survive, and she had dreams that kept her moving forward. She wished for more than just survival. But the city did not make it easy for those like her. Meanwhile, across the street, a man in a sharp suit stepped out of a luxury car. He had just come from an important meeting and carried the air of someone who was used to being in control. He noticed the market as he walked toward his office building, but his attention quickly fell on a young girl struggling with her basket. Something about her made him pause. Perhaps it was the way she moved with care or the quiet determination in her eyes. But he found himself watching her. The girl was focused on arranging her small items for display. She had jars with colorful threads, handmade keychains, and small paintings. Her hands worked quickly and skillfully, but her expression showed the strain of someone who had been working long hours. A gust of wind blew through the street, and some of her items tumbled to the ground. She gasped and bent down to pick them up, her small frame trembling slightly under the weight of her worries. The man approached without realizing he had taken a few steps closer. He reached down and helped her gather the fallen items. "Here, let me help you," he said in a calm voice, handing her the pieces carefully. The girl looked up at him, startled. She had not expected anyone to stop. Most people simply walked by, ignoring her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but sincere. He nodded, observing her closely. She was not like the people he usually noticed. There was something genuine about her, something that did not seek attention or demand help. She simply existed, quietly, in her own world. "Do you sell these often?" he asked, trying to make conversation. He was curious about her life but did not want to sound intrusive. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Every day if I can," she replied. Her eyes flicked back to her items, making sure they were arranged neatly again. She spoke with caution, not revealing too much, but also not hiding herself. He smiled faintly, not expecting much from the encounter, but feeling a strange pull to know more. "You must work very hard," he said. "Do you get many customers?" She shook her head slightly. "Not many, but it is enough," she said with a hint of pride. Despite the hardships, she was determined to make her way honestly, without asking for anything she had not earned. He studied her for a moment, noticing the contrast between her delicate hands and the strength in her posture. It was unusual to see someone so small, yet so resilient. He felt a surprising respect for her. Even though he had only just met her, a few passers-by stopped to glance at her small stall, but most ignored it. Some looked down on her, thinking she was nothing more than another poor girl struggling to survive. Yet she did not seem to care about their opinions. She focused on her work, her dreams, and her own world. As the morning moved on, he found himself staying nearby, watching her interactions. He noticed the way she smiled politely to those who were kind, and how her eyes narrowed slightly at those who tried to cheat her. She was cautious but not bitter. She had learned the ways of the world, without letting it harden her heart. He realized he had underestimated her at first glance. She was not just a poor girl trying to make a living. There was intelligence in her eyes, an unspoken understanding of the world around her. She handled herself with a mix of caution and courage that was rare to see. A sudden commotion near the street corner drew his attention. A man had dropped a bag, spilling coins everywhere. The girl instinctively helped gather the coins, returning them to the man without hesitation. He watched silently, impressed by her honesty and kindness. The girl's actions were simple, yet they spoke volumes about her character. She did not act for recognition or reward. She acted because it was the right thing to do. The man felt a strange warmth in his chest, something he was not used to feeling. He had met many people in his life, but few left such an immediate impression on him. As the day went on, he found himself returning to check on her. He wanted to see how she managed, to observe the determination in her eyes as she continued her work. The city was harsh, but she seemed to navigate it with quiet strength. He decided to offer her a small piece of advice. "You should be careful with this spot," he said. "It can get crowded, and sometimes things can go missing." She looked at him, a bit surprised that someone who clearly had no connection to her world was giving advice. "Thank you," she said softly. "I will be careful." The man nodded and stepped back, realizing that even small gestures mattered. He did not know why he felt drawn to her, but he could not ignore the feeling. She was different from anyone he had met, and he wanted to see where her story would go. As the morning turned into afternoon, he noticed that she took short breaks, sipping water and resting her hands for a moment. He saw the fatigue in her eyes, but also the spark of hope. She had dreams, and no matter how small or big, she held on to them tightly. He thought about the world he lived in, full of wealth and power, where people often judged others by appearances. He realized that he had done the same with her, assuming she was just a poor girl without understanding her story. But now, he saw a different truth. She was resilient, honest, and full of quiet strength. By the end of the day, the girl had sold most of her items. She packed her remaining goods carefully, her hands tired but steady. She smiled faintly to herself, proud of the day's work. The man watched her leave, feeling a mix of admiration and curiosity. He did not know her life, her struggles, or her dreams, but he wanted to know. There was a story behind her eyes, a story he felt compelled to uncover as she walked away. He realized that this chance encounter was only the beginning. He thought he knew her, thought he had seen just a poor girl trying to survive, but he was wrong. Something about her had already turned his world upside down, and he did not yet understand how much it would change him for the girl. The day had been long and tiring, but she carried a quiet satisfaction in her heart. She had survived another day, earned a little more than yesterday, and kept her dreams alive. She did not know that someone powerful had taken notice, someone who would unknowingly play a role in changing her life forever. The city moved on around them, unaware of the subtle connection that had formed. Two lives from completely different worlds had crossed paths in the most ordinary of places. Yet, that ordinary encounter held the seeds of something extraordinary. Both of them walked away thinking they had simply spent another day in the city. But neither would forget the brief moment that had shifted their perspectives. The man returned to his office, his mind not on his meeting or his business, but on the girl who had quietly captured his attention. She had done nothing extraordinary, yet everything about her was extraordinary to him. And the girl, walking back to her small room, did not know that a life far beyond her imagination was now intertwined with hers. The first part of their story had ended, but the journey had only just begun. The next day, the girl woke up before sunrise, as she did every morning. Her small room was quiet, except for the faint sound of the city outside. She had a little breakfast, simple and plain, but it gave her energy to face the long day ahead. Her basket was ready, her items carefully arranged, and she felt the familiar mixture of hope and worry that came with each market day. Meanwhile, the man in the sharp suit had returned to his busy life, yet he found his thoughts drifting back to her. He could not stop thinking about the girl with the quiet strength and gentle eyes. Something about her lingered in his mind, and he realized he wanted to understand more about who she was. He had seen people struggle before. She had a dignity that could not be ignored. The market was already alive with the usual crowd. Vendors called out, children ran past, and the smell of street food filled the air. The girl moved gracefully through the chaos, setting up her small stall with careful hands. She had learned how to protect her things and keep them organized even in the busiest moments. Today felt different to her, though she could not explain why. Perhaps it was the feeling that someone had noticed her yesterday. Someone who saw more than just a poor girl struggling to survive. The man arrived at the market later that morning, not because he had business there, but because he wanted to see her again. He watched as she worked, arranging her items with precision and care. She had a quiet focus, a determination that made her stand out in the crowd. He felt a strange sense of admiration. Here was someone who lived a life so different from his own, yet she carried herself with a strength that he rarely saw in the people around him. He approached her cautiously, not wanting to startle her. "Good morning," he said, offering a small smile. The girl looked up, her eyes widening slightly in recognition. She nodded politely. "Good morning," she replied softly. He noticed the slight tension in her shoulders and the careful way she kept her hands on her items. She was wary, as she had to be, yet she did not push him away. He appreciated that about her. Most people would have assumed he was there to judge or criticize, but she treated him with calm neutrality. "I wanted to see how you were doing," he said. Trying to sound casual, she blinked, a little surprised by his words. Most people ignored her, walked past her, or occasionally tried to take advantage. Few ever genuinely cared. "I am doing well," she said quietly. "Thank you." He walked around the stall looking at the items with interest. The hand-painted keychains, the small jars with colored threads, and the miniature paintings all showed care and skill. "You are very talented," he remarked. "It is clear you put a lot of effort into these." The girl hesitated, not used to receiving compliments, especially from someone so different from her usual customers. "I try my best," she admitted softly. Her voice held a quiet pride, but it was never boastful. He nodded, sensing there was more to her story than she revealed. He could feel the layers of her life hidden beneath her calm exterior, and his curiosity grew. He wanted to understand her struggles, her dreams, the resilience that shone through despite her hardships. As the morning continued, a small crowd gathered near her stall. People came and went, picking up items, asking questions, but most seemed indifferent. The girl treated everyone with kindness, answering questions politely and smiling when appropriate. Her patience and grace stood out in contrast to the impatient bustle of the market. The man watched quietly, noting the way she handled each interaction. She did not complain, did not ask for special treatment, and did not show frustration even when customers were rude. Her calmness in the face of challenges impressed him more than he expected. It was rare to see someone so composed and strong without being arrogant or pretentious suddenly. A little boy ran past, bumping into her stall and knocking over a jar of colored threads. The girl quickly moved to pick it up, smiling at the boy. "Be careful," she said gently, handing the jar back. The man observed her reaction with interest. She did not scold, did not get angry, but handled the situation with kindness and patience. Her compassion seemed natural, not forced. He realized that her character was built not just on survival, but on a genuine care for others, even when life had been hard to her. Later, a woman approached, examining the small paintings carefully. She picked one up and admired the detail. "This is beautiful," she said. "How much for this one?" The girl named a modest price, enough to earn a small profit for the day. The woman hesitated, then handed her the money. The girl smiled politely and thanked her. Watching her interact with the customers, the man saw a quiet confidence in her, a way of managing her life with intelligence and care, despite the limitations around her. He decided to speak to her again. "Do you ever think of doing something bigger with your work?" he asked. "You have real talent." The girl paused, unsure how to answer. She had dreams, yes, but they seemed distant and almost impossible. But it is hard." He nodded, understanding the difficulties she faced. "I see," he said softly. "But talent like yours should not be limited by circumstance." She looked at him, slightly startled. Few people had ever said something like that to her. Most looked at her only with pity or indifference. "Thank you," she said quietly. A sudden commotion at the edge of the market caught their attention. A thief had snatched a woman's purse, and people shouted and chased after him. Without thinking, the girl moved quickly. Noticing the thief drop the purse as he ran, she picked it up and returned it to the woman, who thanked her profusely. The man watched in awe. She had acted instinctively, with courage and honesty. Even though it was risky, he realized that she was not just strong in her quiet way at the market. She had bravery, kindness, and integrity that went beyond what most people possessed. His assumptions about her had been completely wrong. She was not just a poor girl struggling to survive. She was someone remarkable. As the day went on, he continued to observe her, noticing the little details that made her unique. The way she greeted the regular customers, the way she handled difficult people with patience, the way she cared for her belongings and her small items. Each action revealed more about her character, more about the depth of her life, and more about the resilience that guided her every step. By evening, the girl had packed up her remaining items. Her hands were tired, her feet sore, but her spirit remained strong. She smiled faintly to herself, proud of what she had accomplished despite the long day. She had managed to sell most of her work, had been kind to everyone around her, and had stayed true to herself. The man approached her once more. "You did well today," he said. "I am impressed by your dedication." She looked at him, a little surprised that someone cared enough to notice. "Thank you," she said simply. He hesitated, then decided to ask a question that had been on his mind. "Would you like some help? Perhaps a way to reach more people, so your work can be seen and appreciated." The girl looked at him, unsure what to say. She had dreamed of a better life, yes, but she had never imagined someone from his world noticing her or offering assistance. She had learned to rely only on herself. Yet, there was something genuine in his offer, something that made her consider the possibility. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I am used to doing things on my own." He nodded, understanding her hesitation. "I understand," he said. "I am not here to take over your life, just to help if you ever want it." She nodded, appreciating the gesture. There was no pressure, no expectation, just kindness and respect. That alone was rare enough to make her heart feel a little lighter as the sun set over the city. The girl walked home, carrying her small basket. She felt a strange mix of fatigue and hope. The day had been long, but something had shifted. Someone had seen her for more than just her circumstances. That small recognition felt like a gift. The man returned to his office, thinking about the day. He had come to the market out of curiosity, but he left with a growing respect and fascination for the girl. She had shown him a world he rarely noticed, a world of quiet strength, honesty, and courage. His assumptions about her were wrong. He realized that the truth about people often lay deeper than appearances. For both of them, the day had been ordinary in one way and extraordinary in another. The girl had survived another day, working hard and staying true to herself. The man had learned a lesson in humility and admiration, realizing that there were people whose lives and spirits could not be measured by wealth or status. Their paths had crossed again, each learning something from the other. And though they returned to their separate worlds at the end of the day, the connection that had begun was quietly growing, hinting at the changes, challenges, and truths that would soon turn both of their worlds upside down. Days passed, and the girl continued her routine with determination and quiet strength. Each morning she woke up before sunrise, prepared her basket with care, and headed to the bustling market. Despite the long hours and the many challenges she faced, she found comfort in the small accomplishments of each day, the little victories that kept her moving forward. The man, meanwhile, could not stop thinking about her. Her courage, patience, and honesty had left a strong impression on him. He had spent his life among people who were often motivated by selfishness or ambition, yet here was someone whose integrity and kindness seemed effortless. He found himself wanting to learn more about her, to understand the life she had led and the strength she carried within her. One morning, he decided to approach her with a more personal question. He wanted to know about her past, her family, and the experiences that had shaped her into the person she was. As he walked toward her stall, he noticed the careful way she arranged her items, her focus unwavering despite the noise and chaos of the market. "Good morning," he said, his voice gentle. "May I ask you something?" The girl looked up, slightly startled but not afraid. She had grown used to strangers approaching her, but there was something different about him. "Yes," she replied softly, keeping her hands on her items. He took a deep breath. "I've noticed you working here every day. You seem very strong, very determined. May I ask about your family? About your life before this?" For a moment, the girl hesitated. She was not used to sharing personal details with strangers. Life had taught her to be cautious, to protect herself and her dreams. But something in his tone, in the way he looked at her, made her feel that he genuinely wanted to understand, not to judge. "I live alone now," she said quietly. "I work hard to survive. My parents, they are no longer with me. I have had to take care of myself for a long time. He listened intently, sensing the pain behind her words but also the resilience. I see, he said softly. You have been very brave to face all of this on your own. She nodded, not out of pride, but as an acknowledgement of the truth. Life had been difficult, but she had learned to persevere. Her struggles had shaped her, but they had not broken her. Have you ever thought about doing something more with your talent? He asked, something beyond this market. The girl looked down, considering his question. She had dreams, yes, but they had always felt distant and almost unreachable. I wish I could, she said quietly. But life makes it hard. I do what I can to survive, he nodded, understanding the weight of her words. I understand. But talent like yours should not be limited by circumstance. As the day went on, the market grew busier. People came and went, and the girl handled each interaction with patience and grace. She smiled politely at customers, answered questions carefully, and managed her items with skill. Despite the long hours and the fatigue, she remained composed, showing a quiet strength that left a deep impression on him. Later, a man approached the stall with an arrogant air. Trying to haggle aggressively over a small painting, the girl stood her ground, calmly explaining the value of her work. She did not argue or raise her voice, but her firmness made it clear that she would not be taken advantage of. The man eventually walked away, frustrated, and she continued her work without a hint of resentment. The man watched, admiring her composure and intelligence. She had faced difficult people and situations countless times, and yet she never lost her sense of self. Her actions spoke louder than words, revealing a character built on integrity, patience, and courage. As the afternoon approached, a small accident occurred. A customer tripped and spilled a basket of items near her stall. Without hesitation, she rushed to help, picking up the items and calming the customer with gentle words. Her kindness and quick thinking prevented the situation from becoming chaotic. The customer left with a smile, grateful for her help. The man approached her again. You are incredible, he said softly. I've never seen someone handle so many challenges with such grace. She looked at him, a little surprised. Compliments were rare, especially from someone so different from her usual customers. Thank you, she said quietly, her voice carrying a mix of humility and pride. He sensed that there was more to her story than she had shared. He wanted to know the truth, the real story behind the quiet strength and the gentle eyes. I feel there is something you are not telling me, he said carefully. Something important about your life, she hesitated, unsure whether to reveal more. Her life had been shaped by hardships, and she had learned to keep certain truths to herself. But there was something in his presence, a sincerity that made her feel safe enough to share a little more. I was not always alone, she began slowly. There were people in my life who cared for me once, but circumstances changed. Life took them away, and I had to learn to survive on my own. He listened silently, feeling the weight of her words. Her story was filled with loss, struggle, and resilience. She had faced more than most people could imagine, and yet she continued to move forward with quiet strength and dignity. You are stronger than many people I know, he said softly. Your life has taught you lessons that most of us never have to learn. She nodded, accepting his words but not seeking them. Her strength was not about recognition. It was about survival, about maintaining her integrity and dignity in a world that often tried to take it away. As the day drew to a close, the market began to empty. The girl packed her remaining items carefully, her hands tired but steady. She smiled faintly to herself, proud of what she had accomplished. She had survived another day, earned a little more than yesterday, and stayed true to herself. The man walked alongside her as she left the market. He had offered to help carry some of her items, and she had accepted, grateful for the gesture. As they walked, he asked more about her dreams, her hopes, and the things she wished she could achieve. She spoke softly, sharing glimpses of her ambitions and the things she longed for, though she remained cautious about revealing too much. You have a remarkable spirit, he said. I believe you can achieve whatever you set your mind to. You just need the right opportunities. She looked at him, a mix of hope and skepticism in her eyes. I appreciate your words, she said quietly, But life does not always give opportunities so easily. He smiled gently. Sometimes, life gives us people who open doors we never expected. I want to help if you will let me. She considered his words carefully. She had learned to rely only on herself, to trust few, and to protect her dreams fiercely. Yet, there was something in his presence, a sincerity and respect, that made her feel it might be safe to accept help, at least in small ways. As they reached the edge of the market, she paused. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "For noticing me? For caring? It is unusual." He nodded. "It is because you are unusual. Strong, kind, honest. I wanted to see you again because I wanted to understand." While the girl smiled faintly, a rare warmth in her expression. "I will think about what you said," she replied. "For now, I must rest. Tomorrow will be another long day." He watched her walk away, feeling a deep respect and a growing curiosity about her life. She had already changed the way he saw the world, the way he thought about people, and the assumptions he had made. She was not just a girl struggling in the city. She was a person of depth, courage, and integrity as he returned to his own world. He realized that this connection was only beginning. There was more to her story than he could imagine, more to her life than anyone had ever known. And he felt certain that when the truth came to light, it would not only change her life, but also his own, in ways he could not yet understand. For the girl, the day had ended with the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. She had faced challenges, handled difficulties with grace, and stayed true to herself. Little did she know, the man who had watched and admired her would soon learn a truth about her that would turn his world upside down, challenging everything he thought he knew about life, people, and the value of appearances. The first hints of revelation were near, and both of them would soon be drawn into a story that neither could have predicted. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between the man and the girl began to grow in quiet, subtle ways. Each day he returned to the market, not for business, but because he wanted to see her and understand more about the life she led. He watched how she interacted with the people around her, how she managed her small stall, and how she handled every challenge with patience and determination. Each encounter revealed more layers of her character, and he felt increasingly drawn to her, not just out of curiosity, but out of genuine respect and admiration. The girl, on her part, noticed him more as well. At first she had been cautious, unsure of his intentions. But as days passed, she realized that he was sincere, that he genuinely cared to understand her and see her efforts. His presence became a quiet comfort amidst the noise and struggles of the market. She had learned to trust her instincts about people, and slowly, she allowed herself to be less guarded with him. One afternoon, a sudden rainstorm swept through the market. Vendors scrambled to cover their goods, and customers rushed for shelter. The girl struggled to protect her items, clutching her basket as the rain poured down. The man quickly stepped in, helping her move to a nearby sheltered area. Together, they covered her goods and ensured that nothing was ruined. In that moment, the barrier between them seemed to melt slightly. They were no longer just observer and observed. They were two people helping each other, sharing a small yet meaningful moment. After the storm passed, they walked through the wet streets together. The girl thanked him quietly, and he smiled. "You are very brave," he said. "Most people would have panicked or given up." She shrugged, a faint smile on her lips. "I have no choice but to be brave," she replied. "Life does not wait for anyone." He admired her words. She spoke with a realism and resilience that was rare. She did not complain, did not seek pity, yet every word carried a weight of experience and wisdom that came from surviving hardships. He realized that her courage was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, steadfast, and unwavering. Over the next few days, he began to engage her in longer conversations. He asked about her dreams, her childhood, and the challenges she had faced. She shared small pieces of her life, careful to reveal only what she felt safe sharing. He listened attentively, never judging, never interrupting, allowing her to express herself fully. The girl began to feel a sense of relief in talking to him. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, truly seen for who she was, not just for her circumstances. One day, he invited her to visit a small gallery that displayed local artists' work. She hesitated, unsure of whether she should accept. Such places were far removed from her daily life, and she had never imagined stepping into such a world. But he assured her it was just an opportunity to see how others showcased their work, to learn, and perhaps to dream a little bigger. After a moment's thought, she agreed, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. At the gallery, she was amazed by the different styles, colors, and forms of creativity around her. The man watched her closely, noting the fascination and inspiration in her eyes. He encouraged her to touch the art, to ask questions, and to explore ideas she had never considered. She felt a spark within her, a feeling she had long suppressed because survival had always been the priority. In that small, quiet gallery, the possibility of more of growth, recognition, and creative fulfillment began to take root. They spent hours discussing art, techniques, and expression. He shared stories of his own experiences, the challenges he faced in his world, and the lessons he had learned. She listened, absorbing his words, but also offering her own perspective, her unique understanding of life that came from her struggles. Their conversation flowed naturally, a meeting of two different worlds, yet finding common ground in the values of honesty, hard work, and resilience. As the sun began to set, they left the gallery and walked through the quiet streets. The city had slowed down, and the noises of the market were replaced by the distant hum of traffic and soft streetlights. They talked about their hopes, not just for the present, but for the future. The girl shared small dreams she had nurtured, dreams that she had never voiced to anyone before. And the man listened with genuine interest and encouragement. In the following days, they continued to spend time together in ways that gradually built trust and understanding. He introduced her to small opportunities, like displaying her work at local exhibitions or connecting her with other artists. She was cautious, but she began to see that these small openings could lead to bigger possibilities. She still worked in the market, still lived her simple life, but the world outside began to feel less distant, less unreachable. Their bond grew not through grand gestures, but through shared experiences, mutual respect. In a quiet understanding of each other's struggles, the man realized that he was learning from her as much as she was learning from him. Her perspective on life, shaped by hardship but grounded in honesty and courage, challenged his assumptions and expanded his understanding of resilience and integrity. One evening, as they sat in a small cafe after a long day, he asked her a question that had been on his mind for some time. Do you ever think about what your life could be like if circumstances were different? If you had more support, more resources, more people believing in you? She looked at him thoughtfully, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and realism. Sometimes I do, she said softly, but I've learned to make the best of what I have. Dreams are important, but survival is too. He nodded, understanding her balance between hope and practicality. You deserve both, he said gently. You deserve to survive, but you also deserve to thrive, to see your dreams come true. She smiled faintly, touched by his words. For someone so different from her, he seemed to understand something fundamental about her life, and about the person she was striving to become. She had learned to trust carefully, and in his presence, that trust grew. Little by little, as the evening ended, they walked through the quiet streets together, talking about simple things, books, art, and the beauty of the city at night. She felt a sense of ease with him, a feeling she had rarely experienced with anyone. He felt a growing admiration and respect, not just for her talent, but for the depth of her character and the courage with which she faced the world. Back at her small room, the girl reflected on the days they had spent together. She realized that her life had begun to change, not through grand events, but through consistent, meaningful interactions that gave her a sense of possibility. The man had opened a small window to a world she had long thought unreachable, and through that window, she began to imagine a future where her dreams could take shape. The man, returning to his office, felt a sense of anticipation he had not known before. He had met many people in his life, but few had left such an impact. She had challenged his assumptions, inspired his respect, and slowly, she had begun to occupy his thoughts in ways he could not ignore. Her resilience, integrity, and quiet strength had touched something within him, something he had not expected. In the days that followed, they continued to meet, explore small opportunities, and share moments that built their trust and understanding. The girl began to see that not all help came with strings attached, that some people genuinely wanted to support her growth. The man began to see that true strength often lay in those who faced the world with quiet courage, who worked hard and who remained honest despite the difficulties they endured. Their connection deepened, not through dramatic events or declarations, but through the simple, meaningful ways they supported and understood each other. They were learning from one another, growing together, and slowly, the boundaries between their worlds began to blur. She was no longer just the girl in the market, and he was no longer just the man observing. They were two people, discovering the impact they could have on each other's lives, and preparing for the truths that were yet to come. And though the biggest revelation had not yet arrived, the foundation for it was being quietly laid. The bond between them, built on respect, admiration, and trust, was ready to face the turning point that would soon change both of their lives forever. The city was quieter than usual that morning, the streets filled with the soft hum of early traffic and the faint chatter of morning vendors. The girl stepped out of her small room, carrying her basket as she always did. But today, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling she could not quite put into words. Something about the day felt different, as if it was leading to a turning point she could not yet see. The man had arrived at the market earlier than usual. He had spent the night thinking about her, about the stories she had shared, and about the strength he saw in her. There was a truth he had yet to discover, something about her that he sensed was significant, though he did not yet know the full extent. He walked toward her stall, his steps careful, his mind focused. Yet his heart carried an unexpected tension. She looked up as he approached, a faint smile crossing her face. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," he replied, his voice gentle. "Are you ready for another day?" She nodded. Yes, another day, another chance to keep going. They moved through the busy market together, setting up her items and arranging everything carefully. People stopped to look, but she continued to greet each person politely, her focus unwavering. The man watched, noting every detail: the way she interacted with customers, the way she handled difficult situations, the patience and kindness she displayed even when life tested her. As the morning progressed, a small commotion caught their attention. A group of people had gathered near another stall, whispering and pointing. Curiosity drew them closer, and they discovered that someone had recognized the girl. It was an older woman, someone who had known her in her childhood, someone who had been aware of her family background long ago. The woman approached her, eyes wide with surprise and emotion. "Is it really you?" the woman asked, her voice trembling. "I can't believe it. I thought I had lost track of you forever." The girl stared, shocked. Memories flooded back: family gatherings, happier times, and the sudden separation that had left her alone. She had never expected anyone from her past to appear again, and now here was someone who seemed to know the truth about her life. The man watched silently, sensing that a revelation was about to occur. He had seen the girl's strength, her resilience, and her honesty. But he did not yet understand the full story behind her quiet courage. Now, as the woman spoke, he realized that there was more to her than he had imagined. "You have grown so much," the woman continued, "and you have faced so many challenges, but I am glad to see you are still the same kind and strong person you were as a child." The girl felt a mixture of emotions: surprise, relief, and a flicker of joy. She had survived so much on her own, yet this connection to her past reminded her that she was not entirely alone. She introduced the man to the woman, and he greeted her with respect. Curious to learn more about the story that was unfolding, the woman began to share details of the girl's past, things she had not known herself fully until now. Family secrets, lost opportunities, and misunderstandings had shaped her life in ways she had only begun to understand. She had been separated from her family under circumstances beyond her control, and her strength and perseverance had carried her through the years. The man listened intently, realizing that the girl's life was far more complex and remarkable than he had ever imagined. As the truth became clearer, the girl felt a sense of liberation. The mysteries of her past, the questions she had carried silently for so long, were finally being answered. She looked at the man, her eyes reflecting a mix of vulnerability and trust. I never expected this," she said softly. "I thought my life would always be this way, struggling and surviving." He nodded, understanding her emotions. "You have survived and thrived in ways most people cannot imagine. And now, with the truth revealed, there are new opportunities for you." Together, they walked through the market, talking about the revelations and what they meant for her future. The man encouraged her to pursue her dreams with the confidence that came from knowing who she truly was and what she had already overcome. He offered support, not out of obligation, but out of genuine belief in her potential and character. The girl began to feel a sense of hope she had long thought impossible. The world that had once seemed so harsh and unforgiving now appeared full of possibilities. She realized that her strength had always been within her, but now she had allies, knowledge, and support that could help her achieve more than she had ever imagined. In the following days, the man helped her connect with opportunities to showcase her talent. She displayed her work in galleries, participated in small exhibitions, and gradually gained recognition for her skill and creativity. Each success, no matter how small, built her confidence and reinforced the belief that she could achieve her dreams. Their bond deepened further, not just through these opportunities, but through shared experiences, trust, and understanding. They supported each other, learned from each other, and grew together in ways that went beyond words. The girl began to see that life could be different, that kindness and integrity could be rewarded, and that her past did not define her future. One evening, as they sat overlooking the city lights, the girl reflected on how far she had come. From the days of struggling in the market, facing hardships alone, to now, where she had recognition, opportunities, and a renewed sense of purpose. Her journey had been transformative. She realized that her life was no longer just about surviving. It was about thriving, creating, and embracing the possibilities that lay ahead. The man watched her with admiration, seeing not just the girl he had first met, but the remarkable woman she had become. Her courage, resilience, honesty, and kindness had inspired him, challenged his assumptions, and changed the way he viewed the world. He had come to care deeply for her, not for her past, her struggles, or her status, but for the person she was at her core. As they stood together, looking at the city below, a sense of peace and fulfillment settled between them. The journey had been long, filled with challenges, revelations, and growth. Yet, in this moment, they both understood that the story was not just about struggles or hardships. It was about courage, trust, human connection, and the transformative power of truth. The girl turned to the man and smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reflected her journey and the person she had become. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing me, for believing in me, and for helping me find my way." He smiled back, a warmth in his eyes. "No, thank you. You have taught me more than I could have imagined. Your strength and integrity have changed me as well." From that day forward, their lives were intertwined in ways that were both simple and profound. They continued to face challenges as life always would, but they did so with trust, support, and a deeper understanding of each other. The girl embraced her newfound opportunities, pursuing her dreams with determination and hope. The man stood by her, not as a savior, but as a partner who respected her journey and celebrated her strength. Together, they proved that appearances could be deceiving, that true strength and character often lay beneath the surface, and that trust, kindness, and understanding could create extraordinary change. The girl was no longer just the girl struggling in the market, and he was no longer just the man observing from a distance. They had discovered the power of human connection, the impact of belief and support, and the joy of seeing dreams become reality. The city continued to move around them, bustling and busy, but within their shared world, there was a sense of calm, fulfillment, and possibility. They had faced the truth, embraced it, and let it guide them to a future filled with hope, growth, and the profound understanding that life's challenges could be transformed through resilience, trust, and the courage to believe in oneself and others. And so, the girl who was once thought to be just a poor girl became a symbol of strength, integrity, and hope. The man who had once underestimated her found his world changed forever, not by wealth or power, but by the simple, quiet, and extraordinary strength of a human heart. Their story ended not with grand declarations, but with a life transformed, dreams realized, and a bond that would endure, a testament to the power of truth, courage, and connection.